relative to our state. Because some things that happen here in Ohio and especially Cuyahoga County is not happening in other states. And especially this foreclosure issue. Because if many of you are not aware, there's been over 155,000 foreclosures in Cuyahoga County. Did you know that? Anyone? Between 2000 and 2012. Now, I'm saying that to say this county's been targeted, and for whatever reason, they've made us a party to this. We are unwilling participants in foreclosures against those who are not aware of the fraud. Now, many of you may be aware that our federal government filed a lawsuit against the banks for the very things that we're talking to you today about. And in that filing rest all the homeowners. You can't say that the banks violated federal government because it's an entity. The banks violated people. The banks violated homeowners, families. And how I know this, it's maybe something you don't know. United States of America Department of the Treasury Comptroller of the Currency issued their reports. Now we're dealing with Citibank, but this report is basically for all banks. And everyone is stipulated in its own what they call a consent decree. In this particular consent decree, it lays down exactly what the banks had done. There were forgeries of individual signatures. There were discrepancies in these so-called notes that Dave was explaining and what they call the launched notes, meaning issues relative to these notes that were passed through in the foreclosure process may or may not be valid. Okay, now Dave wants to interject.
I just want to interject one thing, because she mentioned something that I'm sure a lot of people don't know about. She mentioned allanges. Does anybody know what an allange is? See, and this is where we need education for everybody concerning mortgages and foreclosures. An allange is a piece of paper that's attached to the original note, and in most cases a copy of the note. And what it's used for is if there is nowhere on the note itself to record a transfer, it's recorded on the allonge. The allonge is supposed to be permanently affixed to the note. In most cases it is not. But in our case, there were 3 different versions of an allonge. There were 2 notes with an allonge and 1 note that was filed afterwards without an allonge. So we know it was all fraudulent. But nobody seems to want to address the fact that City Mortgage and a lot of these big banks are still putting robo-signed documents through the courts, and the courts are letting them go by. Don't think the independent foreclosure review that happened a few years ago solved the problem. It did not. Not only did fraudulent foreclosures not cease, they increased. And one other note before I hand it back to Mark. The 150,000 foreclosures that she mentions that occurred between 2002 and 2012, that's 150,000 families, not individuals. We're talking over 500,000 displaced people. Go ahead, Mark.
Now, in trying to explain this to everyone, and because we're also teaching as well as explaining our situation, because we need to be educated in what's happening here, especially even if you are renters, because it affects you. If your landlord or the owner of your building is foreclosed on, you can then lose your dwelling. And where will you go? Because many people don't have the funds to move. You have to hire movers. You have to first find a place to move to. So, it's very difficult. And now we're coming up on winter. This is why we're so grateful to Don and we're so grateful to this forum to bring this information out. Because Dave and I, on our journey, we've also witnessed that a lot of move-outs happen in wintertime. And we travesties from happening. But I'll get back to the consent order. Now, this was issued out to all courts, prosecutors, city council. From what I'm reading, everyone knew that a consent decree was issued to cease and desist. It's basically an order stating all of these activities through foreclosure process are to cease, meaning no more fraudulent notes are to go through the court process. They are to investigate every single foreclosure to ensure that notes, lodges, and everything is proper. Because the person who's bringing that foreclosure must be a proper party of interest. This is the law. It's kind of like what we say, it's like they talk about the Cadillac and the, you can't have a Subaru guy coming to repossess your Cadillac. That's kind of what's going on. And what this consent decree, it explains everything what had occurred. So we're saying, what's happening here in Cuyahoga County? Why are they not following these guidelines and ensuring that the right party of interest is the person that's foreclosing on you? Because it's a violation of law to come and take something that a person does not own. And I'm not really sure how many of you in the room are familiar or are aware that there was a consent decree issue. Are you or are you not? Yes. How many hands? Yes. Okay, that's great. Have a few. And the Inspector General. This is another report everyone should have. And unfortunately, we're fighting so hard for this. We're spent out. So, we didn't have enough to make copies for everyone. But at some point in time, I would love for you guys to get this. But this is the Inspector General, the Office of the Inspector General, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is from the Office of Audit. Now, this is for city mortgage, as I said. This is particular to us because of city mortgage. This is for every single mortgage company. This is their claims process review. And in this claims process review, they speak about it. This is why we're here to let you know. Our federal government knows exactly what occurred. In this summary, the memorandum, all five, what they consider here results of all five memorandums, meaning all five what they call the FHA's mortgage services. Now, Bank of America is here, Wells Fargo Bank, City Mortgage, JP Morgan Chase, and Allied Financial Incorporated. This review summarizes that there were so-called practices, meaning they engaged in widespread questionable foreclosure practices involving the use of foreclosure mills and practice known as robo-signing of sworn documents to thousands of foreclosures throughout the United States. We initially focused our efforts on examining foreclosure in the judicial states and jurisdictions in which they were visited. Now, I won't read everything because it'll take long. The affidavits that were presented to the court were fraudulent. And we're saying, it's fraudulent. If someone property, because your properties, our property was sold for $1, it's receivership. That's against the law. We've made numerous claims controversially and granted according to applicable law. And have an article basis in law and fact. Now, there's case law I can spout out